In this section, we are going to discuss the project life cycle. Usually, the project is divided into phases, and that division helps us to control the project. So we have kind of milestones at the end of each phase. The phase of a project is much similar to the project itself. Usually, we have kind of requirements at the beginning, and we have deliverables at the end of each phase. Phases should not be in sequential order. They might be overlapping, as we might see in the slide that we have. So we don't have to complete all the activities in a specific phase in order to start the new phase. It depends on the type of the project, depends on the needs of the sponsor, depends on the management plan of the project management team. So we have multiple parameters that govern the overlap between the different phases. As we can see in this diagram, for each phase, we should have all the processes that we have for each project. We should have kind of initiating processes, we should have kind of planning processes, we should have executing processes, closing processes, and monitoring and controlling processes. So all the types of processes and all processes almost are existing for each phase somehow. Whatever we have kind of sequential phases or we have kind of overlapping phases, but the processes itself should exist in each phase as they should exist by virtue in the whole project life cycle. The project life cycle, as we can see, is consisting of multiple phases. Like if we are talking about construction project, we might have kind of conceptual phase at the very beginning, and we might have planning phase and design phase, and then we might have kind of executing phase or construction phase. Before this, we might have kind of bidding phase, and then we have kind of commissioning phase, and at the end we have to close the contract, or depends on we are the owner or the contractor or the designer. So it depends on the type and the perspective of the manager that we are talking about. By the end, we have the overall project life cycle that we have for the project, and we have the same processes for each phase that we got in the project. At the very beginning, we start with the project scope statement. In order to control the scope, we should have project scope statement that states the requirements, the different requirements and the different items of planning that we have for the project. We should have kind of project assumptions at the very beginning. What are the assumptions that we have? If we are talking about construction again, what is the location of the project? What is the size of the project? What is the budget of the project? Is it the responsibility of the owner to provide the materials, for example? Is it the responsibility of the contractor? So we have too many assumptions actually whenever we are trying to make that scope statement at the very beginning. Project constraints. What are the constraints? The most important constraints that we have for any project, 99.9 of the projects includes time, the duration of the project, and cost, the budget of the project. These are the most common constraints that we have for a project. The contract closes some of the constraints or many of the constraints that we have for both sides, for the owner and for the contractor, for example. Project exclusions. If we are talking about construction contract between owner and contractor, what are the exclusions? That should be clear in the contract actually. If we don't have a contract, if we are working for our own company, in this case, we have to state that in the project scope statement. Do we have to work for the finishing items? Do we have to work with the landscape items? So many items need to be clarified in the contract or even in the project scope statement if we are talking about self-implementing project. The objectives of the project. Are we working to achieve specific profit for the company? Are we working for the win-win situation? Are we working to make kind of we must win situation? So it depends on the type of the the targets that we have and the types of the objectives that we have to state that again for the scope statement or in the scope statement. That helps the project manager for the details of the plan and helps a lot and a lot if we have kind of change in a project or claims in the project. The product scope description, we have to describe, find the specifications and the quality of the different items to be delivered. So we have to define that again. Maybe it is in detailed in this phase, maybe it will be detailed later in the new documents to be produced later on and so on. But by the end of this plan, we should have full description for all the products to be produced within the scope of the project. Product acceptance criteria. It is very related to the scope description, product scope description. We have to specify what are the criteria required to fulfill when we are delivering the different items in the project. And that's related to the specification. If you are satisfying the specification that we have specified in the previous item, so in this case, the sponsor or the sponsor representative or the owner representative, if you are talking about construction, in this case, he should accept the products that we delivered. Project deliverables, again, is the products, the final products that we have in the project. So these are the ultimate deliverables for the contractor or for the project manager implementer who is responsible to deliver those items to satisfy the requirements needed for the project at the very beginning that we got. Now we are talking about work breakdown structure. This is the decomposition of the works, the different items to be worked at the project or to be delivered in the project. This is the whole project or the whole items in the project. When we are talking at the top level, we are talking about the items to be delivered. At the very beginning, we have to decompose. We have to divide the work that we have in smaller items, like what we have task 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 until task n. That helps us to control the work that we have, control the deliverables that the project manager will be delivering to the sponsor or the sponsor representative. So if you are talking about construction, how the contractor is going to implement those different tasks to deliver different components to the engineer or to the owner representative. So that helps us to make kind of control on the different items. The lowest level that we have in the work breakdown structure is work package. So whatever the number that we have in the work breakdown structure, the lowest level is always called the work package. Actually, the work breakdown structure kind of the link between the contractor and the owner. So the owner usually is interested in following all the items with all the levels that we have in a WPS. The contractor, further on, he most probably he will go to make kind of more decomposition for the work package that he has in the WPS in order to arrange for the different activities. So the activities are kind of decomposition for the lowest level, which is the work package that we have for a project. So for this example, for this sample or example, this is the lowest level that we have for a project. So actually all the levels that we have, which is the level number 3, this is level number 1, and this is level number 2, and we have a third level, which is the work package that we have. So all of these items in white, or the boxes in white, are the third level, regardless of the level in the slide itself. If these are lower than these, but by the end, this is level number 1, this is level number 2, and this is level number 3, and this is level number 3 as well. So those are components to be delivered. All of the boxes in white are work packages, but the implementer or the contractor, most of the cases, he will divide that into more manageable activities in order to achieve those components or the work package to be accepted or rejected by the engineer or by the sponsor of the project. work breakdown structure that we have here in blue, and we have what's called OBS, organization breakdown structure, the team who is working in the project that we have in red right there to the left. This organization of people, or those people who are implementing those activities that we have in blue. So we have a strong relation and action between the red boxes and the blue boxes, between the OBS and between the WBS, between the people and between the work package and the components of the WBS. And actually, this is very important to be considered when we are constructing the WBS. We have to consider this relationship. We have to consider the responsibility of each component in the WBS, starting from the first level up to the nth level that we have at the very bottom of the WBS. The connection points or circles in green that we have in this slide, this is the point that link the activity that we have in the WBS or the work package that we have in the WBS with the man responsible in the OBS in the organization breakdown structure. So this link for the responsibility is very important, and this guides us to the control accounts that we have. So each green point or green circle that we have here is called control account. Control account is not just for the accounting of the money. It is for the accounting of the money, accounting of the duration, accounting for the quality, accounting for the responsibility, accounting to the scope of work that we have within this work package or this activity. So it is controlling everything that we have in this work package. For a specific person that we have in the OBS, he might have responsibility for more than work package, but vice versa is not correct. So each single work package should be assigned just for one person in the OBS. So based on this diagram, we are showing the dependability or the relationship between the work breakdown structure that we have in blue and the organization breakdown structure that we have in red. The whole points, the whole green points or the whole green circles that we have is called control chart. So this control chart includes all the items to be controlled in the project. The final slide that we are going to discuss in this session is the concept of rolling wave planning. When we are discussing the scheduling or the planning of the project, we don't have to focus on all the items that we have in the project. That's when we are talking about large or long project like construction project, like big construction projects that might last for 3 or more years. So in this case, like we can see in this little diagram, we are talking about a 2-year project. So we don't have to make kind of breakdown for all the items at the end of the project, but we have to break down the items at the very beginning of the project. What is meant by the very beginning depends on the type of the planning or the planners that we have in the project. So this could be like 3 weeks, could be like 1 month, could be like 6 weeks. So it depends on the vision of the planner or the project manager that we have. As long as we are going further with time, when we are at the very beginning of the planning process, we have to break at higher level than we have done for the items to be implemented at the short-term process. So the items or the activities that we are going to implement after 2 years or after 18 months, for example, we don't have to break down at the full definition for those activities and those work packages. In many cases, actually, we don't have the details of those components. Like if we are talking about some installations, we might have kind of little information about the requirements of the HVAC requirements, for example, for electrical and mechanical requirements, and the subcontractor will prepare that later on. So in many cases, that works by definition or by virtue or by the virtue of the industry that we have in the project. So this is what's called rolling wave planning. Thanks.